Welcome to Creatives in Quarantine. I'm Tiwana Floyd, your host. This week, I talked to actor, writer, and content creator Maddie Patrick, who credits her big spurts of creativity to her capacity to rest more often, being creative at her own pace. During the quarantine, Maddie co-wrote and shot the short film Prime Directive, that's now a semi-finalist at the Burbank International Film Festival. Here's Maddie. So, what are you most commonly known for creatively? Because we all have lots of creative talent.
Oh, goodness. I guess I'm most known for acting.
Yeah.
Like, I'm an improviser, and I have a few TV credits. I did a French short film, and that's what I want to be known most for.
Understood.
I've written a ton of stuff, but acting is like my thing.
Right. And so then writing is also your other creative outlet, amongst others. But I'll let you talk about the other things that you are known for, or may not be known for yet, but have been before.
Man, what? Yeah, I mean, right. So actually, I don't particularly like to write all that much.
Yeah.
Isn't that so funny? But I do, and I'm pretty good at it. But I don't always enjoy it the most.
Yeah.
But when I'm not acting, I need something.
Right.
So I write. And I often write with writing partners because a lot easier.
Right. Is it because it's to stay accountable, or just the partnership and the collaboration of hashing out ideas?
It's more, I'm pretty good at accountability. I wrote a movie by myself in 10 days. I can, if I set a goal, I can do it.
Yeah.
But I like writing with partners better because just the way the process works.
Mm-hmm.
I'm much better. I like to work where my partner usually writes the first draft and then I am more in charge of from there on.
Okay.
I'm in charge of editing and redoing and maybe adding stuff that we need. So, because that's my hardest hurdle to get over is the first draft. Because I love writing clean first drafts, one that I wouldn't be embarrassed to send out, you know? Mm-hmm. So, I mean, they don't have to be perfect, but I like them to be of a caliber where I'm I could just send this out to somebody and be oh, this is good enough. Mm-hmm. But that stops me from writing more.
I understand. It's like a critical little person or in your mind telling you, hold on, we need to flesh this out more because that doesn't make sense, or it makes sense to be more detailed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so what do you normally, so you wrote a film, and what genre is it?
A buddy comedy.
Oh yeah.
It's called Hot Lunch. It's about two best friends who are a little lost and get jobs as lunch ladies together at their alma mater.
I love it. Are you?
I write mostly comedy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you one of the characters?
I actually did not have myself in mind for one. I could play one of the characters, but I actually had Tiffany Haddish in mind, and my other friend Ginny as and she's Asian, so it's actually a Black and an Asian character. But
what's Tiffany's name, just in case Tiffany Haddish watches this and is we're doing this film with the two of us?
What was your question though?
What's Jenny's last name?
Oh, Chung, Jenny Chung.
Jenny Chung, great. Just in case Tiffany Haddish sees this and is we're gonna read the script.
They're two of the funniest people I know, so I was I'm writing a movie for them.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
And then you also have another gift that I would love you to talk about.
Tarot.
Yes.
I love tarot because I find if I don't do something spiritually in my life, I feel kind of dead is a strong word, but just a little emptier.
Yeah.
I'll put it that way. So tarot helps me connect to that side of myself. So I love like the art of it. Like there's so many different, I use the traditional tarot deck, the Rider-Waite, but like there's so many different types, and like I really love the art that goes into it and the thought that goes behind it. But it also has such a rich history at this point, so it has a lot of meaning. But really it comes down to like, what does your intuition say that these cards are saying?
Right.
And I was really hesitant at first to do it because I'm like, what if I don't do it right? What if I read it wrong?
Right.
Blah, blah, blah. But the more I did it, the more I'm like, oh my God. Like every time I'd be like, oh geez. Like it was almost like too spot on. And I'm like, okay. So I just like kept going, kept reading, and now it's just a part of my routine. I do them at least on the new and full moon. So every 2 weeks I do like a bigger spread. If I have a question at the time, I'll ask the question, or I'll just be like, what do I need to know for the next 2 weeks?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But how did you get started?
I don't really know like what the spark was.
Mm-hmm.
There's a store in Los Feliz, and there was a store in Hollywood, but I think it just closed because of the pandemic. But it's called Liberate, and I would often, it's like a new age store, you know, tarot and crystals. But I love just walking around, and I think maybe I'm pretty sure I bought my first deck there, maybe. I don't know. Like I was like, I've always been drawn to that stuff. I'm always been into it. So it just kind of happened. And then I also have, I was in Goodwill and I sit down on a chair, and the way my body was angled, I was facing this deck of oracle cards. Mm-hmm. And I like went over to it and I picked it up and I was like, well, I'm supposed to have these. Right. So I do those as well. It depends on like my mood or what I feel like I need at the time. But it was kind of just, I've always been kind of into that stuff. I've been into astrology since I was in like middle school. What was that? Oh, I am an Aquarius sun, mm-hmm. a Virgo moon, and a Gemini rising.
Oh, that makes sense. Okay. I'm a Gemini sun, a Leo rising, and a Sagittarius moon.
Whew. Yeah. Hiya.
Right. The Aquarius and the Gemini, both those air signs.
Oh. Yeah. 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 I always, in my life, in a lot of things, I always feel like split. Like I always feel like I want things that don't always match up. Yeah. But I want them at the same time. Yeah. And I was like, oh, well, Aquarius is like the most aloof sign of the zodiac, the most independent, most like up in your thoughts. And then Virgo is like the most practical, the most, I'm like, I find as I get older, I'm more in tune with my Virgo side, like get things done, scheduling, like, but I think I've always felt that like pull, like I want a house on a farm, but I also want to be an actress in Hollywood, you know, like
do both.
Right, exactly. It's like this, I don't have those things yet, but yes, I want both.
Yeah. Who is it that lives in Michigan on a farm? Is it Jeff Daniels? Ugh.
I know Demi Moore lives in Idaho.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And Katherine Heigl, I think, lives in like Wyoming or Montana. Right. But you know, when you're at that level, people call you.
Yeah. But, you know, I just read an article the other day that talked about, you know, people don't have to be in the state that they're in to do the work that they want to do. And
especially now,
yeah. So there may be, that future may be closer than you think.
Yeah, no, I don't think it's not a possibility, but it's just always like, I have those like kind of opposing feelings a lot. Or I want this and I want that, but they're not really. But I think it's just two sides of my personality.
Yeah, and life is what we make it. So,
Doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
So, okay, so you're also an improviser, and that's how I met you, doing sketch comedy, and you have an improv team.
Yeah, I mean, we haven't performed in a few months, but yes, we're the Cabal. We met doing a class at UCB. We met Julie Brister's advanced monoscene class, which was like a game changer for me. One, because I just realized I love monoscenes because they're longer and you're acting a little bit more and you get to see things through. And also Julie Brister is like one of the best teachers I've had. Okay. She's amazing.
Shout out to Julie.
Shout out to Julie.
That's funny because it's called, so the style that you guys perform is called the Monopoly. Wait, explain it.
Yeah, the show is called the Monopoly and we do the mono scene.
Right.
Yeah.
And yeah, because I was able to perform with you guys a couple times, but the first time I heard it, I was intimidated by it because I hadn't heard of that style before.
Sure.
And so is that a UCB technique?
I don't know if it's a technique. I just think, I mean, it probably started more probably in Second City or something, you know, since those people came from UCB people came from. But it's not really like something that's taught per se. It's like you try it based on the skills you've learned already. That's why it's an advanced class, because you're not really taught the mono scene. You take what you learn from game and characters and then you put it into the mono scene. But I think it's a great form of improv, especially for actors doing improv instead of like improvisers who kind of get into acting because of improv. Like the mono scene is more of like, we're sitting here, we're looking at each other, we're not trying to one up each other because we only have 2 or 3 minutes for a scene. Like we're here for 15 minutes, 10, 15 minutes, like can't go anywhere else.
Yeah, so you can be grounded, not crazy town, and like you said, one up.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a great thing. How long have you guys been playing together?
We had our class was like at the beginning of 2017. So since then.
That's a good while.
Yeah.
One of my teachers, Ron West at Second City, he said to us, he said, look at your class right now. A few people in here are going to be the people that you will have as friends and family for life. And that's the case for me, where my group came out of Second City and we're called Sibling Rivalry. So there's 4 of us and we've been together since 2012, I believe, in forms of.
Oh, that's a long time.
That's a long time because we went through the program together, mostly because we were all middle-aged and we understood each other's references.
Sure.
We're doing Tuesday nights because we get each other. And then after that, there were 5 of us, but now there's 4 of us in the group. And so, yeah, so we travel together, but like local staycations and things like that. We've gone through animal deaths and girlfriends and boyfriends and all other stuff. But yeah, I get that whole family dynamic of the improv team, especially when you find good people. So here we are in this quarantine. Is there anything that you've been doing to stay creative or just not?
Well, at the beginning, I told myself, if you don't want to do anything right now, that is fine.
That's right. There's no wrong way.
I was like, I find that the more I let go of trying to be creative, the more actually creative I am. If I try and schedule too many things, or I try to be like, well, you should do this or you should do that, like I never do as much as I actually want. And I almost never end up doing anything because I always just feel like this pressure. But it's not like there's a deadline. I don't, like, there's nothing I don't have to do it. And I don't want to feel like I should do it, just out of a fear mentality rather than like just I want to share this. But so I think like there's just other ways to stay creative besides like performing or writing or whatever. But I did write a pilot with my writing partner.
Awesome. So he started it and then you did the cleanups.
Well, like, so he wrote the first 10 pages, I wrote the second 10 pages, he wrote the last 10 pages, and then we both edited it together.
Yeah.
And now we're writing episode 2. But it was really easy. We put it on the blacklist. It got like a decent rating. So yeah, so it that worked out. My husband and I did a film in quarantine because there was a submission thing like that I found on Instagram for Paul Feig's his media company was like hosting this thing. So I was like, let's do it. Whenever I have a deadline, I'm like, let's get it done. Yeah. So we made this short little comedy. It's called Prime Directive. It's called Prime Directive. It's about 2 aliens that are sent to Earth, and they both have like different directives that they have to do for their one day on Earth, but they're humans, and they don't know that they ended up at the same place together. So they have like,
oh, that's cute. Prime Directive.
So we actually were just selected as a semi-finalist for the Burbank International Film Festival. So
yeah, and
another online film festival. So that took all of one day, you know, like 8 hours, and then like maybe 2 hours to write it, maybe with edits and stuff. So it's like sometimes creative stuff like just doesn't take that long, but like it fills you up for like a while. Like I have a balcony garden.
Ooh, lovely.
So I've been like tending to my plants. What else have I been doing? I've been doing tarot. I play some video games sometimes. I get like really into a game for like a week, and then I'll go like a month and not play anything at all. So like I know if I'm playing a lot, I know I'm gonna probably not play too much longer. So I just kind of like ride that wave.
Do it, yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
I find that how I work a lot in spurts, whether it's with like fun things or creative things. Like I condense a lot into a short time, and then I won't do anything for a while. And I used to beat myself up over it because I'm like, there's so much, not pressure, but there's just, you see so many people and how they're creative and how they talk about doing stuff every day or whatever it may be, their creative process.
Right.
And it's like, it's not always like they're telling you have to, but you kind of take that on to yourself. You're like, oh, well, if that person's doing that, I guess I should be doing that. Right. And then as I gotten older, I've just realized like, oh, that's just not how I work. I am really creative and productive in big spurts. Yeah. And then it's a period of like rest, if you want to, you know.
Charity said that you're a big protector of your rest. And I was like, that's great, because a lot of people don't know how to rest. And I love that you talk about working in spurts, recognizing it, and then being okay with it, as opposed to trying to drive some sort of productivity or busyness all the time. That resonates with me because it took me a long time. I'm the same way. I operate in spurts, and then my downtime is just like binging something or whatever that could be, or just completely disconnected from anything creative. But it took me a long time to recognize it, and then also to be okay with it. And I remember not last year, but the year before, because Mercury is my ruling planet. So when Mercury goes retrograde, I tend to just get real still and chill, and I'll just do the bare minimum as opposed to like force something to happen. But 2 years ago, I sat here and I just binge watched, I think all 5 seasons of Project Runway. and with no guilt. And what I learned, who knew I would be learning something, is that the people who stay true to their passion, or the people who knew exactly what they wanted to do, those were the people that made it to the final five. And the people who would start to like doubt themselves, they would get eliminated immediately. And I'm like, oh, that's a good little moral or parable or something for life. It's just like, you know what you're gonna do, just stay on that track. But the beauty of, and somebody else said this, is about giving yourself grace and allowing yourself to be where you are instead of forcing what society tells us we should be doing.
It's hard. And like, I make it sound easy, but like I still go through periods where I'm like, I should be doing something. And like, sometimes it's hard to rest. Because I feel like maybe I shouldn't be resting, but I'm just much better at being like, nope, no, like I can rest, like, and it's fine. And if like, we even think about how people, like how farmers used to work, like, and I'm talking before like technology, like you would work in spurts. You worked in the summer and the fall, and then you rested a lot. Like, so it's kind of like human nature. You do kind of work in spurts, but it took me a long time to learn how to rest and mentally too. Like to be like, I can't do that right now, and put up boundaries. I was terrible at boundaries for a while because I would say yes to anything, because you felt like you had to, because people are like, there's a hustle culture in LA, and I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with working hard, like, but the culture insinuates that if you're not working, you're not going to be what you want or have what you want, and that's the reason you don't have it right now, is because you're not. But it's like, I realized it myself, and I told all my friends, I was like, just because you don't have what you imagine you want does not mean you're doing it wrong. Like, things take time. Like, there's like, just because it's not where you want it to be doesn't mean it's not working. Or just because somebody else has that doesn't mean you have to do the exact same thing as them, or feel like you're not doing enough because you're not at that point. Because like, when you reach that point, you're just gonna want more. You're gonna want something new anyway. So like, getting to a point is very fleeting. Like, okay, I'm making money, enough money to support myself, and I'm on TV and I'm doing all this.
Now what?
People aren't going to be like, okay, I'm done. Like, it's just, like, you're going to keep wanting, you're going to want to do new things. You're going to want to do more. You're going to, I'm sure there's a lot of people who are going to worry that they have to do more then because they don't want to lose what they have. Like, nothing's ever going to be done. So I'm like, the point is not to get to the point.
It's enjoying the journey
as much as you can. And it's hard sometimes because there are so many people, especially like, I don't think social media is evil as like some people insinuate.
Same here.
But it's hard because we now listen to so many more people than ever before. And like, we listen to everybody's opinions, and we see what they're doing, and we see we can see, like, on Instagram alone, you can see hundreds of different people doing different things every day. We've never had that before. Ever. Like, you used to speak to your friends and your family, and sometimes you saw stuff on TV. But like, everybody else was watching the same things you were, because there are only 7 channels. So if you didn't like All in the Family, there was a bunch that didn't like All in the Family, and then there was people who did like All in the Family. But like, that was like the whole country, like, you were on the same page because you were watching the same thing.
Right.
But now, and I'm not saying it's a bad thing, there's just so much more people are watching, and you're not you're barely watching the same thing as some people. So it's just like, there's not a cohesive conversation like that anymore about like cultural stuff, because we're just not watching the same things. And you just see so many people a day, which is why I deleted Instagram off my phone. Now, if I want to go on, I download it, sign in. I have to manually do all that stuff. And it helps so much.
Yeah, I get that. There are times where I find myself probably in those moments where when I'm not in a spurt, and then I'm just constantly on Facebook, blah, blah, whatever, and then starting to notice that I'm feeling bad. And so I'll do that. I'll erase the app from my phone, and then I have to intentionally go and log into the account to do so. And then even then I'll give myself like, okay, you can scroll down 10 times. And then after that, you have to get off of the program. But I think what you brought up, because we are so inundated with constant information, imagery, overload, and for you to recognize probably before we even got here, the importance of taking your rest and kind of deactivating or moving yourself away from these things, it's serving you now, but then will serve you for as long as we have technology the way it is.
Yeah, because it's not going away. So it's like, I can't run away from it. And it has been helpful. Like, I can't deny that, like, Facebook and Instagram have led to some opportunities for me, and like,
absolutely, same here.
And connecting with people, and it's good, but at the same time, if I look at it too much, I just feel inundated. I'm like, because your mind can't, if you're just scrolling, and look, most of us don't even spend like 5 seconds looking at a post. We're just like, boom, boom, boom. Our minds can't, it doesn't have time to process like, oh, this person is doing that. Do I do that? No. Do I need to be doing that? Well, what is need? Like, we don't even give ourselves time to process what we're seeing. We're just like, oh, she's at the beach. But like inside, we're like, should I go to the beach? Do I need to take more vacation? Do I need to get photos? Like, but it's all happening so quick that we don't even realize it sometimes. But giving ourselves time to process things is really important in this particular day and age, because that's the whole point. Like, it's good if you give yourself time to process what you're seeing and be like, oh, I understand why I'm feeling this way. Okay. Or maybe you realize you don't need to follow people on Instagram, that every time you see them, maybe they're really negative, or like, you're just like, I don't need to see what they're doing on a consistent basis.
Exactly. Yeah.
And you just get so many people's opinions instantly, and a lot of people react instantly. It's like, no, like, give yourself at least a day. Like, if something makes you angry, give yourself a day. I bet you will feel at least a little differently. And if you don't feel differently, then you know it's like, it's on.
Yeah. But even then, if you don't feel differently and you're giving yourself that space, now you're not responding from an emotional place. You're responding from a factual place of, here are the facts, as opposed to a barrage of anger and emotion.
Yeah. I mean, and I'll get real with you on this creative in quarantine. Like, I had a nervous breakdown 2 years ago, and it forced me to look at a lot of things in my life and how I was processing things, and how I wasn't giving myself time to rest, and how I was telling myself how I should be doing everything, or how I should be feeling. And now I feel a lot of things, but I realize now that, like, that's like, feel it all, feel everything. But I'm giving myself the time now to process what I'm feeling, because it gets stored in my body. That's right. You know, and if I don't process it, or if people don't process it, it goes inward, because it's energy. So if it doesn't go out, it goes in, and it makes us sick, makes us anxious, makes us depressed, everything. It affects us so much. So, like, since then, I look at everything in my life and I'm like, is it serving me? And like, if it's not, and learning to trust myself. I forgot completely about trust growing up. Like, I'm like, why don't I trust myself? Yeah. Like, why? I'm like, I get things done. So why am I forcing myself to get these weird random goals done? Yeah. Do I want to be doing them?
Right.
Like, who am like, and learn. So I've learned to like be like, it's gonna be fine. Like,
yes.
I don't have to rush anything. I don't have to be famous by the time I'm 22, because we're obsessed with being successful when we're young.
Right.
So obsessed.
Because
and I'm like,
should be by a certain age.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like, you can't do as much when you're older. I'm like, that's BS. Like, yeah, there's going to be obstacles in your way, and they're going to be different obstacles, but you know, it's not, you can do anything. It just takes like just a little trust, and maybe you need to pivot at some, also like learning to pivot, like,
yeah,
okay, this isn't working, I'm gonna go this way now.
Right.
Like, okay.
Yeah.
Like learning that like it'll come back. And that's where like the intuition comes in, and the tarot and the spirituality. It's like, okay, I can't see the finish line. I always remind myself that I don't know the finish line, but if I trust the step I'm taking right now is guiding me to the finish line, okay. Like, I do believe in something more than myself and all that jazz. So I'm being guided. I can't see the finish line, which is frustrating at times.
I know.
But I just have to take, like, if it feels right in the moment, then it's the right choice for me right now. Exactly. Doesn't matter if it seems crazy to anybody else.
No, that's the part. Yeah. Right.
And it's hard. It's hard because people are like, but, and you're like,
can't do that.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Doesn't matter.
Yeah. I think Will Smith talks about that, where he talks about you have to protect your dreams as if it's the flame of a candle, and you have to hold it and you have to cover it, and you can share it with those people that are really worthy of sharing the idea with, but for the most part, protecting it as if it's so delicate, it can be blown away. Because I remember I had one friend, and I had these ideas when I first moved here, and she had been here for a while, and I was like, oh, I'm going to go do this. I'm going to go do that. And she's like, you can't do that. And I was like, huh? And she's like, no, that's not how they do things here. And I'm like, but I thought there were no rules. What? You know? And so over time, I started to realize that, I have to now kind of release that friendship, which is hard, which nobody talks about that. Can we have a book on that?
Yeah, like breaking up with your friends.
Yeah. Because we're taught, especially I think women and girls, to be a good friend. But what does a good friend mean? And at what point do you stay in it when it's no longer a good friendship? And not to blame either person, because we all come together with something.
You're just different at a certain point.
Exactly. Right. And so my friends back home will ask me, how come you guys aren't friends anymore? And I said, because I can't allow her to be herself. It's on me.
Her being herself does not jive with me.
It doesn't work.
It's true though. You learn how to let go of people as you get older, and not from a place of malice either. You're like, You're just like, okay, we're just not in tune with each other anymore. And I wish you no ill will. I don't, but like, yeah, I can't give you my energy anymore.
That's right.
And intention.
And intention?
Attention.
Attention. That's right. Yeah. And so speaking of having a nervous breakdown, what does that look like? What does that feel like internally?
Well, for me, it was a combination of things. Like, I've dealt with anxiety since I was, I think my first anxiety attack was when I was 21. So it was that, but it was delayed PTSD from a friend's death. Like, you know, so, and then it was dealing with some personal issues that like triggered a lot of fear. And I know what that fear is now, but, it all came together. It was like the perfect storm. So for me, it was I literally couldn't, my thoughts were just completely absorbed in my anxiety and there was not a moment where I wasn't, and it became so invasive that I was like, I need help. Like I was it was so physical too. I was like shaking, and I was like, what is going on? Like, and I've learned I have pure OCD, which is OCD with thoughts and not like, I don't wash my hands constantly.
Yeah.
But so it's just a repeat. But like, you literally, if you don't know what it is, you think you're going insane.
Right.
So man, so I went to the doctor, I went to the therapist, and I went to my acupuncturist. And I still do therapy every so often, and I miss acupuncture. But that really helped. And then I did go on, my doctor gave me an anti-anxiety pill, because I'd taken Xanax for my anxiety attacks, maybe like twice a year. For like, but he gave me one that you take every day, and that caused insomnia on top of being anxious.
Right.
And man, for like 3 months, I was a physical mess. And then we switched it, and I came off, and I went on a new antidepressant. And then for me, the side effects just didn't work. Like it wasn't a balance. Like it wasn't worth it. So eventually, after like months, we weaned myself off of it. Mostly because of the sleep. Like I still couldn't sleep, and it took me like a year to get back to like sleeping normally.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was so physical, and it was that OCD. Like it wouldn't stop. But at that, I remember thinking like, okay, I'm gonna deal with all my shit. I'm gonna do it all.
Yeah.
And I'm like, because I don't want this to happen again.
Yeah.
So like, I started, therapy, meditation, reading, reading about other people's. I learned about Saturn returns.
Yeah.
And I was turning 30. I was like, of course. And I learned about the dark night of the soul. Yeah. And I learned about so much. I'm like, most people go through this. Why didn't I know? And I feel like
about it, right?
Nobody taught. So that's why I'm not ashamed. I'm not like, I don't want people to be afraid of what I went through, or afraid of what they might go through. Right. But I'm like, this happens, and you're okay. Like, it's okay. Yeah. You have to get help. You have to reach out and tell people like, I'm struggling. I need help. You need to do what you need to, it might not look like doctor, acupuncturist, therapist, but do whatever you need to do. And like, you have to reprioritize everything. Like I couldn't go to work. Like that's how bad it was. But I had to be like, okay, I have to live off my savings. Like I have to get better, because I knew if I went to work, if I tried to make myself go to work, it would have taken so much longer. I mean, being home was not fun either, but like having to deal with that in front of so many people. And I usually work temp jobs, so I don't know a lot of these people.
Right.
Like personally, that I can't like reach out to them in that way. Nor should they have to deal with somebody like that, but yeah, I want to talk about it more, because it's very common, and like it's very scary when you're going through it, especially if you don't know that it actually happens kind of a lot. But as long as you take care of yourself and do what you need to do to get through it, on the other side, it's great. Like I would say for the past 2 years, like I've been like, I've like felt more at peace than ever before. Like things come up, but I handle them so much better. I'm used to surrendering more, and I found that things go away quicker if I just allow them. Like if I feel crappy, I will just be like, okay, I'll get to a point where I'm like, fine, I'll feel crappy. All right. I'll like yell at my brain and my body. I'll be like, fine. And then like in a few hours, it's gone. I was like, oh, okay. But yeah, I want to talk about it more because it happens so often.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that, because while we say nobody talks about it, I think more so now there are more outlets where people are talking about it, but still not to the degree where it's like a mainstay or like mainstream. And you know, I don't know if it has anything to do with Los Angeles, because the energy here is so frenetic and everybody is chasing a dream and there's a desperation in the air.
Yeah,
and
you can smell it. You're like,
it's like as soon as you walk outside, it's like right here, it's like vibrating. But in 2010, the first time I ever had roommates was one year from 2009 to 2010, and there were three of us. We were all from New York, but one girl I knew back in New York, but not really, and one girl I met here. And then after that 1 year, it wasn't horrible, but we don't talk to this day because it wasn't great, and we just said, you know what, we tried. But after that, I did a people fast because I felt like I had so many of other people's opinions in my head about how you should pursue and be in life and blah, blah, and all this stuff. Just felt really noisy. And so the only thing that I knew to do was just to isolate and just not be around people. And the only person I spoke to was my mother every week. And I remember telling one friend, I was like, hey, so I'm going to disappear for a little bit. You're not going to hear from me. I'm just going to do a people fast. And she thanked me. She was like, I'm glad you told me, because I would have thought there was something that I did to you. And I'm like, nope. And so that people fast, which I may still be in it. It was 2010. It's not as extreme as that first year, but it's the same thing that you're saying now, is that because I was able to tap into my intuition, learn surrender, get rid of all of other people's opinions. I have a stronger filter, I would say, to hear what people say. It's like, I don't need that part, but I'll take that part. But the peace of mind around taking care of yourself, especially, I guess, when you're an artist, especially when you're in a city where everything's a hustle. I think any major city, because New York is like that too, but it's the peace of mind, and it feels good. And to be able to process things and recognize when something doesn't work for you and the reason why, and then the power to stop. And then when you feel safe to do it again, then to do it in moderation is such a gift.
Absolutely.
And I wanted to, the reason why I asked you that is because there could be people watching who may be experiencing a nervous or a panic or anxiety and not know what it is. And so now we get to share our personal experiences with it.
If anybody at home has this, you're gonna be fine.
You're gonna be fine. Yeah.
You're gonna be fine. Like, it feels like you're not. And it's really hard when you're in the middle of it and somebody tells you that you're fine, because you're like, no, I am absolutely not fine. But you are. You're just going through something very hard. And learning that life isn't always about feeling easy breezy.
It's not.
Like that, like there's a deep peace, but like still something, like your life situation is going to be chaotic sometimes, or things are going to trigger you, because like we're human. Like it's really hard to filter out everybody that doesn't serve you. It's really hard to like balance using social media and not using social media. It's really hard to live in a city where everybody's chasing a dream and not feel like you're doing enough. You know, like it's all it. But yeah, I think you'll learn to process more. Process better.
Process better. For me, I've learned to do less smarter, as opposed to doing a whole bunch of stuff and trying to throw, I guess, what they call spaghetti at the wall and hope something lands. Now it's more focused, less, but smarter.
Yeah, because we need rest. We, as humans, we need physical breaks. We need And like, we should just honor when we feel like we need it, no matter what other people are saying, no matter what's happening. And that's hard. Right. But like, the more we trust ourselves, I think life starts to feel a little easier too.
Absolutely. A friend who, she went to some sort of seminar or whatever, and it was like a seminar, and the guy she was okay and she's listening or whatever, and then at some point he was telling everybody that they should wake up at 5 a.m. and get things done because that's creative, successful people, blah blah whatever. And she's a Taurus, so she raised her hand and said, that doesn't work for me. Are you saying that I can't be successful if I don't do that? And he said, no, because you have to get up early, blah blah. So he was defiant, and she said okay, and she got her stuff and she left because it wasn't for her. That was not her message.
Like yeah,
love that.
Yeah, when people do say stuff like that and they're not, it's like, that's hard to like realize inside yourself, like, oh, that doesn't work for me, and it doesn't have to.
It doesn't have to. Right.
Like, if you wake up at 11 a.m. and you feel like you've done enough in the day, you've done what your responsibilities that, you know, keep your life together, right. Like, and then you go to bed at 3 a.m. Who cares? Like, it literally doesn't matter.
Yeah, it doesn't.
So yeah.
So what has there been anything that you've read, listened to, ate, book, food, music that has been inspiring for you during this quarantine?
I would say I think Desano's Pizza is the best pizza in LA. I'll just put that out there. So,
try it. Good.
It's pretty good coming from a Italian American Jersey girl.
And like, East Coast, that's right. Very particular.
It's pretty good.
Okay.
But I would say the best book I've read, because I was on a tear for a bit. I read Normal People by Sally Rooney, and it's also now a Hulu limited series.
Oh, yeah, right.
It was, I started reading it, and she doesn't use quotations for dialogue. So I was like, I'm sure not going to like this book. This is going to, and I just flew through that thing. It was so good. It was so frustrating and beautiful. It captured like two kind of like and I use broken very loosely, but two maybe emotionally immature people who love each other very much, try to deal with what people think of them and what they think of each other and all that. And it was very good. And watching the show is very close to the book. Okay. And that guy is hot. Whew. Whew. And any British or Irish accent is like just an instant aphrodisiac for me. And I'm like, okay. So I'm trying to think of any other book that like, I always reread probably like once or twice a year. I reread The Power of Now and A New Earth by Eckhart Tolle.
Wow, that's great to know.
I
haven't read The Power of Now. A New Earth, I remember, it's like, whew, I had to put it down for a second. He was speaking so much truth. It was, and then, yeah.
Yeah. A Power of Now like came before A New Earth, and it's like a little denser and a little, I read that one first like years ago, and it did the same thing to me. And then I did A New Earth, and I was like, more truth. But like, I think A New Earth is better for people to be introduced to Eckhart Tolle, because I think it's a little bit more concise, a little less like big. I mean, it's all big picture, but Power Now is more conceptual, and I think A New Earth is like slightly more practical. But they're like natural Xanaxes to me. If I ever feel like I'm chaotic or I lost my center, like reading those books like gets me back to like, oh right, it's just about being here. It's not about living in the past and making myself miserable. It's not about living in anxiety of the future. It's like just trusting right now. And like, if I'm making decisions based on what's in front of me right now, then that's the best I can do. And I can't control how things are going to turn out, but that's also okay. There's a freedom. Like, you're not binded by what you think you should be, or where you think you should go, or how much success, financial success. Like, it doesn't matter anymore, because you just made the best decision you could in the moment. Yeah, just being present. Be here now.
No, I love it.
Yeah.
Well, we are coming to the end of our time.
Uh-huh.
Are there any projects that you have coming up? Well, you mentioned the film festival. I don't know if that's something that people could participate in, but if there's something else that you want to talk about and leave us with.
Sure. I mean, I think you can watch the festival online in September.
Okay.
So I'll probably post about it at some point. I've been like pretty lazy about posting, but it's a choice, actually.
That's right. Choice.
I don't think I'm actually, and this is a bomb to drop at the end of the conversation, but I'm actually going back to school in the fall. Yeah. Because I'm actually going to study to get a nursing degree.
Congratulations. Whew.
I know. I'm like, we're talking about creative stuff. We'll focus on that. But yeah.
No, because to me, that's creative as well, right? It's an art form. So.
It felt right. And like, I can't do the temp jobs I'm doing anymore. And that's really where it came from. I was like, Hollywood's on pause for a while. I need something. And I want to be, like I said, I have those two things, acting, nursing. It doesn't seem like it goes together, but I'm like, I'm going to do both.
Yeah.
There's
so many hospital shows. It's like one of the main shows that always come out every year.
Right. So it's like, just because I'm going this way doesn't mean I'm off. Anyway, it feels good to me, so I'm doing it. Yeah. And because I have a bachelor's, it should take a lot less time.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. So. My best friend went back to school for nursing. Oh, I don't remember how old she was, but I don't think she was 40 yet, but she was in her late 30s. And had to do her bachelor first and then move on to the other studies. And she's been working as a nurse in New York and here now. She's a travel nurse. Maybe 12 years or something like that. But yeah, she hasn't looked back.
Yeah.
And she's still creative. She's a stand-up comic.
Right. It's like just because you do one thing doesn't mean you can't do another.
Exactly. And that's what I want people to know. Anybody who feel like they're straddling having to make a choice for one thing. You don't. Yeah,
it's like you don't have to like give up on your creative career. It's right. Like you can pivot back. Like that's the thing. Like it came from an acceptance that like what was holding me back was fear that my acting career wouldn't be what I needed it to be, but I was like, I can always come back, or maybe I'm meant to make this, like do this and come back. I don't know, but I'm not afraid of trying.
That's right.
Because it felt right.
That's right.
So that's why I might not be doing anything like big project for a while.
That's a big project.
Oh, well, yeah, that's a big project, but like might not be writing or acting for a little bit. But hey, I also might. It might open up my creativity even more. Who knows?
Exactly. Because sometimes we have to move away from just one linear thinking in one area to then open us, like you said before, the creativity, when you don't force it, you become even more creative.
It comes, it's there. Yeah. So that's what I'll be doing in the fall. I think you can watch the Burbank Festival online in September. But yeah, those are my two things for now.
I love it. And then by the time I figure out how I'm going to post these episodes, I'll have the link and it'll be
great.
From there. Thank you, Maddie. This is a great conversation.
This is lovely.
This is the whole purpose. It's like I work with people and we have these, we meet each other in passing, but it's brief, and it's like that person I'm really interested in. I would like to learn more.
But we've stayed in contact since we met, so it's been nice.
Yeah, but we've never had like an in-depth conversation, and this is what the whole purpose of this is for, and to just connect.
It's great. It's great. This was lovely.
Thank you, Maddie.
Thank you. Have a good rest of your day.
Thank you. You too.
Thank you for watching Creatives in Quarantine. You can learn more about Maddie Patrick in the description below. If you learned something new, be sure to subscribe. See you here on Tuesdays, or whenever you choose to watch, because it is YouTube. Don't forget to rest. Don't forget to rest.